All right, ready whenever you are.
All right, so welcome to our clinical education. We actually had some other material that we were going to present, but knowing that we're going to have ACHC accreditation coming up and survey, we thought it was important that we introduce ACHC and some of the policies and try to, kickstart the survey process for everybody. So, currently you guys know that we've got 3 companies. So we've got Home Care here in Denver. We've got the Loveland office. So Denver is CHAP. The Loveland office is HCHC. And then hospice is JACO. So we need to get all of the companies on one accreditation. So that's what we're doing here, trying to educate you guys, kind of catch up on what's coming up. There's a lot of different regulations with this, and there's actually the email that Jen sent out to you guys last night or yesterday afternoon that has everything you need to know. So to prepare for this, we started to prepare for this about 6 months ago. We started updating our policy and procedures, and Tamara and Kelly, who was here earlier, I don't know, most of you probably remember Tamara, but they've been updating all of our policies and procedures for this accreditation. We also have a new CPR. We have to do our skills checkoff, so we're also providing our skills checkoff in-house, which that's coming a little bit later. And all of our HR files have to be updated. So HR is going to be reaching out to various people, many of you, to get our HR files updated to coincide with ACHC. Our Denver audit window opens actually, I believe it's February, the end of February 29th through May 18th. So it's coming up. So please document appropriately. Please document appropriately. Loveland was already ACHC accredited last year, so currently we've got surveys going on throughout the company every single year. So it'll be nice to just have one accreditation. For CPR, we're going to have the in-person skills checkoff by Amanda Spahn. She is a hospice supervisor. It's half the cost that it is for you guys to go out and do it on your own, and HR just takes it out of your paycheck. HR personnel files, they're going to be doing a deep dive, so you've got to have your current driver's license, car insurance, sex offender check. Yeah.
It's just a check.
It's just part of their accreditation. This is what they do instead of what CHAP used to do. So that's why we have to do some of this. And then our annual education requirement, which you guys just about completed today. So that's going to be done. We'll still have all of our quarterly all staffs, and we'll still send out education updates as they're needed, throughout the month. If we have any updates, or if we see something in an audit that becomes a trend, then we'll go ahead and send that out like we usually do. But please help HR get everything ready and respond to them in a timely manner so that we can get all of this rolling. So what does this mean for you guys in the field? So we have 60, we used to have we'll have 60 days to get an order signed instead of 30 days, which is a big difference. Just some of these docs don't like to sign orders. Sometimes we find out that there's another doc that's actually on the case signing orders, and that doctor has left for whatever reason. So we'll have some more time to get our compliance up with orders getting signed. The next thing, which is great for the nurses, is we no longer have to have our wound supplies on the medication profile, which is awesome, so. The first go around, I was going like this.
Starting today?
Starting today? Well, that's a good
Yeah,
question.
good question, because I'm doing it right now.
No, okay, so just keep it there for now. Well, our accreditation hasn't gone through yet, so
Okay.
yes, keep doing it. We don't have to have an indication for all of the medications, but we do have to have an indication for PRN medications.
Only for PRN.
So if your patient is taking, you know, occasionally has some pain or occasionally has a headache or something, taking ibuprofen.
Medications, that's all.
Yeah, so if they have ibuprofen, if they're taking tramadol, if they're, you know, something for pain, it's a PRN, then we just put the indication for that, which is pain. So nice and easy, huh?
Okay, yeah.
We also have our regulatory education every year, which is 12 hours long. That doesn't go away. ACHC does not, oh, I already said that. We also have our ride-along audits. Those are getting done and completed as we know, but we do this every year. So there's no difference with that. And let's see. How do we know?
But it said audit, it said on the right along something about the questions will have a different focus?
They will have a different focus, so we'll get into that.
Oh.
And also, guys, everything has been sent out via email, so you're gonna wanna look at those guides and the questionnaire forms that Jen sent out. So just take a look at all of that, kind of study, get ready to go in case you get asked some questions. For HR, they're gonna be pulling, you know, clinical charts. They'll be pulling charts for ride-alongs, so you wanna make sure that, you know, your infection control, all of that is great. Make sure your cars are clean, of course. They'll be asking you questions in the home with the patient. So again, read all that information that Jen sent out. Another thing that they may be asking is, you know, they'll be pulling our HR files. So they might be asking you questions according to, you know, what is our onboarding process? What does orientation look like? Well, a lot of you, you know, some of you have been here 5, 10 years, you know, longer. So you're gonna wanna go through and read some of that as well. So you're gonna just wanna know that process. Those are just some of the questions that they might ask you if they pull your HR file. Next one, conflict of interest. So if you begin a visit with a patient and you realize that you have a conflict of interest for any reason, first notify scheduling and leadership whether the visit was completed with the patient and if the patient was safe. If you're unable to finish the visit, then it'll be restaffed ASAP, but it'll be restaffed the same day, such as if the patient needs wound care or insulin that day, we'll need to know that immediately so that we can get another nurse out. Or, well, not therapy in this case, but you guys would have time to restaff if you have a conflict of interest. Let us know if there's a conflict of interest, and we'll use this for any information for staff in the future. For instance, we had, here's an example of a conflict of interest. So ex-mother-in-law was assigned to a clinician.
My mom was assigned to me.
What?
My mom was assigned to me.
Oh, well, there you go. There is an example of a conflict of interest. I don't even keep.
Her therapist, but.
Oh, great. But yeah, if you find that, I mean, we had another clinician whose daughter went to the same high school as the patient's daughter, and they had some sort of fight in school or something like that. And so, yeah, we had to restaff that patient. But that's, you know, those are a couple of examples of a conflict of interest. Chain of command. So if anybody were to ask you what the chain of command for supervision is, what would you say? So first there's the patient, right? Then you've got your direct care provider who supervises the assistants, right? So CNA, LPN, PTA, so PT, RN, right guys? So your supervising clinician reports to the case manager, and it's usually the RN that's on the case. So if there's therapy on the case and there's an RN on the case, they're the case manager. And then they will report to clinical leadership. You guys, PTs, OTs, if you guys are the first discipline on the case, there's no RN, then you guys will be reporting to clinical leadership, and so on and so forth. The supervisor reports to the clinical manager, who reports to the clinical director, who reports to the clinical officer, who reports to Ed,
And then President of the United States.
the administrator, and that's right.
That's it.
So, reporting abuse and neglect. So did you know that it is a class 3 misdemeanor in Colorado if you fail to report a case of abuse or neglect? How many of you knew that? We're all mandatory reporters, right? So if you have a case that you need to report to APS, here is the process. You'll want to call clinical leadership immediately to discuss the scenario. This can be overwhelming. And we want to walk you through the necessary steps. We will notify the liaison and the physician and document it in a prep note. Basically, you want to look at what you guys are going to have to do the reporting. And if you feel uncomfortable, then we want you to come in and sit with one of us so that we can walk you through the process. And I've done this before. I've done this in the past, with other clinicians, and I'll have them come in, and what we do is we make the call right there. We discuss objectively what we feel might be neglect or abuse, and you have to be very objective about what you're seeing, not subjective, right? When you're reporting, it's reported per county. So you should be able to find the county in the demographics tab. Does that make sense? Okay. So we have to report suspected abuse. You can see there was a patient a few weeks ago actually that we had to report on because a clinician was seeing bruising on the arms, and they didn't
Home or
really
assisted
know.
living facility?
Huh?
Home or assisted living?
This was assisted living. So, I mean, we're mandated to report, right?
Yeah.
So if it's an ALF, what have you,
Yeah,
we
I'm just
still
wondering.
have to follow the process, okay? It is, once we report, it is APS's responsibility to see if those are founded allegations or not. They're the ones that do the investigation. One thing that I can tell you is, once we report to APS, sometimes a detective or a police officer might call you back if it's that serious. And so you'll want to go ahead and be honest with them and let them know what you've seen, right? Does anybody have any questions on that?
I had some fun this last month. The APS person, liaison, case manager that I was working with, she suggests that you not tell the patient or the family that you're making a report so that they can have the best.
That's right. That way there's more honesty involved. They don't feel threatened, they're able
Prepared.
yeah. So it's better that not everybody is involved, so. But if you guys have any issues, give us a call, come into the office, we'll walk you through the process, okay, so that you're comfortable. not everybody has had to report before, so, just wanna make sure everybody's comfortable with that. Reporting a complaint. So it's patient's right to report a complaint to the office. Katrina is the one that handles all of our complaints. The most common complaint that we get is if a clinician is late. So this is why the supervisors, managers are always telling you guys, please call the patient if you're running late. Please pick up the phone and give them the hour window when you're gonna be there. You know, just so that there's no miscommunication, the patient or family member doesn't get upset, because we do get a lot of those calls. We take the date of the complaint, the nature of the complaint, who made the complaint, and regarding which patient. Katrina does the follow-up. If it's a severe complaint, then typically the clinical managers will get involved and handle that complaint. If we have corrective action to be taken, then we will go ahead and take that action and make sure that there's a resolution. But Katrina has all of the logs, and she's kind of the go-between for all of that, unless it's very severe. Okay, how many of you, well, a lot of you, were probably in PCC before, right? Many of you. So, PCC was not the most compliant EMR, which is why we've gone to Matrix Care. Matrix Care is extremely compliant. Sometimes some would say too compliant. What's that?
I remember crying in the car, because it's Friday evening and I need to put orders in, and I just can't do it, nobody can help me, and patient needs to be seen, and I'm like, I'm crying. It was crazy.
It was a difficult EMR, but those days are over.
Yes.
So, one thing about PCC that was non-compliant was that everybody could see everything in every chart. And now, you can't do that in Matrix Care. You can't see anything on that particular patient unless you're assigned to the chart. So, you have to have special permissions. Everybody in the company has special permissions for what they are allowed to do within the EMR. Does that make sense? So, HIPAA is very important, as we know. Here is back on the CPR. So again, we have a requirement of the in-person skills checkoff. Those who are either way up north or way down south, they can opt to go ahead and do their skills checkoff, closer to them, but just know that we do provide that as a service to you guys, and that we have to have those skills checkoffs done.
And it's like in the office?
So, so when you sign up, you can sign up. They've been sending emails out. I think the next one is February or March. I think that we've got them scheduled until possibly April. So take a look at the emails that you've seen for when the next classes are. You'll get to take your CPR online course, and then you come into the office and do the skills check. And then it's down in hospice with Amanda.
Is this only when your BLS card is going to expire? Or is this a requirement just for optimal?
Well,
My BLS is good until I think August.
August,
But
okay.
I can do it early, it's not a problem.
And do you have a skills check with that?
Mhm.
Then
Yeah.
you should be good for now.
Oh, good.
Mine
Yeah.
was on, I just did it like last year.
With
Can
a
I
skills
just-
check?
No, can I just go and do skills check? Mine is good. Do I have to do that first time?
I would just do it over so it's all together.
Yeah, maybe have a
If you didn't do the skills check,
Can you resend that email?
just send me an email if you guys need it, okay? And then that'll, I'm not sure what the calendar is.
Okay.
So, but Jen Bourne had been sending out all of those emails to get people to sign up.
Do you offer them throughout the year or just this time of year? Because if not, I'll just kind of sync up with when you all offer it, you know what I mean?
we'll continue to offer it, as long as we need to, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions on CPR? Nope. Ethical issues. This is similar to conflict of interest. So and it's pretty much the same process. So if a patient has an ethical issue, you have an ethical issue seeing this patient, then go ahead and let us know. We will restaff as soon as possible. Patient must be safe, right? So that's the key thing. Make sure the patient is safe. We will restaff. We need to know what that ethical issue will be, to see what clinician will be sending out next. Does that make sense? So it's pretty much the same as conflict of interest. Communication or language barriers. So Optimal has, we have to provide care to the patient in their own language, right? So we have various resources for translation. We are required to provide a translator to a patient if we accept the patient and they speak a different language. So sometimes family is willing to translate. In-house, we have Spanish, Filipino, Korean, and they can explain consents and they can help translate with all of that. Also, Google Translate is great for translation, and we also have contracts for ALS services. And again, family members are a great option to help with that.
Are you guys asking about that when you do your readmission?
Yes.
Because I ran into an issue with one patient who was deaf but didn't know ASL, and I showed up for the eval and the only thing listed was loss of hearing bilateral, and they were like threatening that it was against the law for me to be there without an interpreter, and I didn't even know until I arrived at the ALF that this was an issue.
Oh.
So, if we could ask that and let the clinicians who are evaling know,
Okay.
that would be really helpful. It ended up being fine. I did the eval over the phone with the family and they were okay.
Oh, perfect.
But, yeah, it wasn't fun.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My favorite is a hearing loss, can't hear anything but refuse to wear a hearing aid. This is my absolute favorite. I'm like, I don't wanna wear it.
So, and I've seen patients, as well who have been deaf or, hard of hearing, and luckily I took some sign language, back in high school, and I played competitive softball, and our pitcher was deaf, so we had to learn sign language. But I've also had which I went out and was able to communicate with my patient, but I didn't know that they were deaf at the time. But also hard of hearing, start writing everything down, yeah, so that they can read and communicate. You just communicate that way. Any other questions on that?
I buy a bunch of whiteboards.
Yep, whiteboards. And then, it's good to, I just leave my whiteboard in the patient's room, so that next time you don't have the issue, right? So.
Do we have a translation line that we can call for other languages?
Yeah, so it's not an actual translation line, but we can talk about that later, okay? So caring for patients with various cultural backgrounds. So cultural competence, that's very important. I think a lot of us have cultural competence. I mean, it's part of being a caregiver, right? Or a professional healthcare provider. But cultural competence increases patient safety, which improves our outcomes, reduces inefficiencies, reduces care disparities, and decreases costs. So, an example would be a patient may not want to take a certain medication, right? They're refusing, or they're refusing wound care for whatever reason. So it's always good to try to get to the root cause of that, and kind of think out of the box of how you can make that happen. Is there a family member that would feel comfortable, during the visit, that they would feel comfortable with if they were at the visit? Is there a reason why they don't want to take this medication? Maybe reach out to the family and say, hey, how come your dad doesn't want to take this? What's going on with this issue? I think it's really important to get the families involved, or the POAs involved, because a lot of times they know more than we actually know, to help us understand our patients. So just, try to reach out and try to get the patient to be more compliant with you. I mean, and if you're having one-on-one issues, you and the patient aren't getting along, try to see why. What is it that's bothering them about, your one-on-one with them? And if not, we can restaff as well. So just let us know, okay? Okay, so here we go again, suspicious. Oh, this actually is a little bit different. So reporting suspicions of fraud, waste, or abuse. So reporting anything suspicious of fraud, waste, or abuse should happen immediately. This needs to be reported to the clinical leadership as well as HR, just not one person. We'll investigate and take appropriate action as soon as we conduct our investigation. We'll either coach the clinician, we may have to let the staff go, and then we may have to ultimately make the visit non-billable. A good example of this might be if a clinician has documented that they went to see a patient, and in fact they have not. That's something that we would need to know immediately so that we can investigate that. Our daytime and after hours process. Who knows our process? Who can recite our day and after hours process?
After hours, goal and optimal.
Crickets.
Goal and optimal, they will direct you to the actual clinician, leaving a message or asking for directions.
So, weekends and after hours, always call the main line, okay?
Or Carrie Ann, personally.
Uh,
Just kidding.
Well, it happens all the time.
That's right, no, anyways, right, I said it or not.
So what happens is, we have after hours kind of answering service, and then those calls get reported to Dana. Then Dana, if it's a scheduling issue, Dana reports those to Joy. If it's a clinical issue, then we work that out too. We've got everybody on board. It'll come to me if it needs to come to me. But that's basically our calling off process. If you have to call out sick, make sure that you're letting them know what patients, especially nursing, if you've got insulin, wound cares, who must be seen without fail. Joy and the nursing schedulers, they start working on this like even at midnight. I mean, they start working on it all night long, so. But this is our after hours process for calling off, or if there's a patient issue. And this is also the process during the day. So if you guys have issues, always call the front desk, call the main line, and then your call will get to who it needs to get to, okay? Any questions?
So if you're doing a startup care and can't find the patient, would that be a time where you would?
You can call in, yep. Or you can link, but I would call. Well, Olga calls me.
That's right.
Start a care. So patient financial responsibility. It's important that the patient knows their financial responsibility, right?
Now especially with all those wound care and everything, it's just so sad.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
Insurance has really changed. So at the start of care, what happens is Sean in billing. So before we assign the patient or accept the patient, benefits are always run. He has an estimate of what the patient's copay or deductible will be. And if their insurance has changed, he also runs benefit. He can see if there's a home health claim. So that's another way that we find out if another home health agency is in on that patient. And then it is, the benefit summary should be in a COM note or prep note. You guys use prep notes, we use COM note, it just depends. the name of the
Right
note.
now.
But for ongoing off, there should be another COM note in there. So this came up at the last session kind of for therapy, especially PHCN, that's a big one. So there should be something for billing in a COM note so that you guys know exactly, you know, when you're doing a start of care, exactly what their financial outlay would be for home care. So just make sure that the patient understands, family member understands, that's all part of your
What about
consent.
Medicaid and Medicare? Still we paying for it or patient responsibility?
Medicaid and Medicare, no.
No.
Yeah, yeah, those are the only two.
I know, that's not asking. Now that maybe something changed already.
So, something else that came up, if the patient has dementia or cognitive deficit, consent still must be signed. So something that came up the last one, a patient, the PT called the family member to say, hey, I'm gonna go see your mom. It looks like she might have dementia. And the daughter said, well, yeah, but she can sign her own consents. Then the PT goes out and says, actually, she probably shouldn't be signing her consents, but she went ahead and signed the consents. It's really important that you guys put in your prep note and in your narrative, you know, in that other box in the, you know, plan of care, you know, the care plan, you know, when you get to the end of the OASIS, that you copy paste that narrative in there saying that you had verbal consent from the POA that patient can sign consent. That covers everybody. And then we will expect to have that consent signed, you know, because the POA said that the mother could sign. Does that make sense? Okay. So, new hire orientation process, so that a lot of you that have not been through orientation for years and years and years. So it's about 1.5 to 2 weeks long, depending. Mondays are always our HR days for paperwork. They have like PowerPoints, they have optimal history day, all of that, that's Monday. Tuesday is our matrix onboarding. Wednesday is OASIS training, bag technique, infection control, and our QAPI process. Thursday is ride-alongs. Sometimes that varies. It can be Friday. It just depends on availability of the ride-alongs that they go out with other staff. And then Fridays, we try to do the final checkoff. Sometimes they're not ready to go. We have a lot of modules, so all of the modules that you guys have completed, they have to complete all of that at orientation. And Sasha, our new RN, so she's recently been through the onboarding process, and she can speak to, you know, it took her a little bit longer. She had some more ride-alongs going, and then came in and had her final checkoff finally. But that's basically our onboarding process. Depending if you're a PT or an RN, The checkoffs are a little bit longer now because we have more content. So PT is usually 2 hours, RNs can be quite longer, like 3 hours, somewhere in there, right? Okay. Clinical skills, competency. So we have the MedBridge skills checks, our ride-alongs, as I mentioned earlier, we have our annual ride-alongs now. And they kind of went away with COVID and all of that. So we have annual ride-alongs now. And then Skills Den is gone. You guys know, right?
Oh, we did it on the
Yay.
computer.
Yay!
Yes.
Well, when Skills Den closed, I ran and got the dummies and a bunch of equipment and all that good stuff. And so now we have in the office, we have a little Skills Den. So if we need to, look at some skills, I've got a little Skills Den, we can go over some skills, if you guys have some questions on that. So by the way, we'll be having some wound vac training and all that coming up down the road. Ongoing training, we have some Zoom meetings that are ongoing. Our quarterly on-site meetings, we'll still continue with those. Monday videos, possibly, we're not there yet. Weekly optional zone meetings, that's coming up as well. Email education, we always email education if we find that we see a trend from QAPI. So MedBridge, that's continuing, and we also have the employee portal on our website that also has content and some videos on that as well. So this is all of the training that we have. You guys remember seeing those videos that we used to send out all last year?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And emergency preparedness. So 2023, we did COVID emergencies, driving and inclement weather, fire hazards, and active shooter. We'll have a packet, your packet that you just went through, that's gonna be our content for 2024, so we'll be done with that, right? And then exposure to hazardous material. So we have in the office, we have to have our MSDS, we have a fridge where we keep medications, it's gotta be temperature regulated. ALFs also have to have this. If it's an optimal chemical, we'll have the instructions on how to handle any mishap. If it's a chemical from the building that you are in, they will have the same type of form. Call the office and let us know if it's an emergency, and we will give you extra instructions. If there's any concern of the mishap, then HR will walk you through getting a checkup from the office, such as Concentra. So we also have a process in the office if you are injured in the field. And what you want to do is call your supervisor or call HR, let them know immediately, and then we will give you instructions. We have forms that we fill out, and they give you instructions to go to Concentra. And that's at Optimal's cost. So just if something happens in the field, call your supervisor or call HR immediately, and then we will give you step-by-step instructions on what to do next, okay? We just want to make sure you guys are seen as quickly as possible. That includes like if you have a needle stick injury, something to that effect. But if anything happens, give us a call. Supervisory requirements. Everyone must have an annual ride-along. I've been kind of harping on that. With their supervising discipline, observing the visit. That includes the supervising disciplines. All will have an in-person observation ride-along if a report of patient safety concern comes into the office, then we will have an additional ride-along. So if we get a complaint, then, and it's escalated to management, then, and, you know, something happens with a patient, whether injured or what, then we will get out there in the field and we'll conduct a ride-along to make sure you guys know what you're doing and everybody's safe. For CNA, home health aides, we have supervisory visits that have to be done every 14 days. And these must be done in person by the RN, PT, OT, with the patient and the CNA in the home. One has to be with the patient, one has to be, it can be via phone call. So many of the OTs kind of know how that works, right? And typically when we are picking up the phone, calling the patient, you know, we're just asking them about their pain, you know, skin checks, you know, have you fallen? How is your service with your CNA? So that's how we alternate. So supervisory, in person every 28 days, right? So that, yeah.
When did that change? Cause I think with COVID, it didn't have to be in person. I think I missed that memo. Do you know?
Nope,
No?
it's been going on a while.
Okay, so I can just call the aide while I'm with the patient and that's included and I just document that?
No, you have to have so the supervisory visit is every 14 days. So one has to be in person, one can be a phone call. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So it's every 2 weeks, one's in person, one can be a phone call. You ask the supervisory questions.
Okay.
Actually, Jen Bourne has been doing the in-between ones, so. She's got a log of that. Safety issues addressed in the patient's home. So you're always, you know, Sock Rock research. Did I miss one?
Are we a PI program? That's what I have next.
Oh, I missed one, sorry about that. So our performance improvement program, or QAPI, I don't know if you guys realize this, but we meet quarterly and we take a look at trends, you know, with QA and QI, quality management and assurance. Tamara and Kelly, they find all of the trends within the agency, and we take a look at how we're doing quarterly. We do a quarterly look back, and then what we do is we filter out any trends that we're seeing. Once we find a trend, then we implement a performance improvement plan. So that's when you guys start seeing all the various educations that are coming out. I mean, it could be infection control, it could be, one of the big ones recently is definitely prep notes. Our compliance with prep notes has gone down. I see it. Our meeting's next week, but I know that prep notes is one of the ones that compliance has gone down. So I'm sure that'll come up at QAPI. Prep notes are really important because this is how we demonstrate care coordination, and that's a regulation. So another big one is infections. This is how we track our infections. So when, you know, you guys, if you've got a patient that has a UTI, it's really important to put that infection report in your flow sheets. And then when it's resolved, or in other words, when the antibiotic has ended, then you're gonna wanna resolve that infection in the flow sheets. So that's another one. Falls is another one. And any missing documentation, you know, if you guys have missed any of our processes according to documentation, that can be another performance improvement plan. But again, this could be that we develop the trends to see if it's specific to one clinician, and then the supervisors, we can put that particular employee on a performance improvement plan. It could be an ALF. And then again, we send out the education as necessary. Safety issues to address in the home. So SOPROC research, we're always addressing the safety issues. In fact, we mark that, in your plans of care, and that goes to your 485 or plan of care, and that goes out to the doctor. So your fall assessment, gate transfer trip hazards, safety hazards, O2 safety, fire hazards. Here's one. Is your patient smoking while wearing oxygen? How many times have we seen this? Again, medication safety, can they access their meds? Are they taking it correctly? Emergency preparedness and evacuation plan, can they negotiate this stairs? All of this has to be documented in the plan of care and the OASIS. How about their access to food? Financial safety, signs of abuse and neglect. So this is why we always address these issues in the home. And then for our emergency preparedness, you guys have seen these before, right? These should be filled out and kept in the home. This is a regulation. This was used at Boulder, with the Boulder fires. And we also use this for blizzards. If we have a blizzard, who are we sending out first? Like, who's triage one? That would be what, our insulin patients, right? Mm-hmm. So, I just want to touch on this real quick too. When you guys are in your admission settings, when you're doing a start of care, that's why it's so important that when you're doing your start of care, that you're selecting your disaster triage in there. Because this is how we determine who, if we have an emergency, who needs to be seen first. So the supervisor shouldn't have to keep reminding everybody to keep doing that. I mean, we have to have this in our documentation. Okay, so we've had some changes with the clinical leadership team.
No.
So Jen was up here in the earlier session. It was kind of sad. So. But her last day is March 1st. And she's asking people maybe that afternoon if they want to come to say goodbye to her. She would love to see you, okay? Ashley, she is on maternity leave. I'm gonna step in as the interim director of nursing.
Come on.
Awesome news.
Way to go, Carrie Ann! There you go.
And right
And
now,
Ashley's coming back, okay, Ashley's coming back.
Ashley's coming back. Well, hang on, that's the final slide. Hang on. Abby is still our nursing supervisor. Rudy and Rhonda are still our wonderful therapy supervisors. And Lisa Sandoval is gonna come in and help. She's gonna be another supervisor. Rebecca Williams, now she started out as a supervisor down in hospice. She's super smart, we love her to death, and she's gonna come up and be our clinical educator and transitional care liaison. So really excited for that. She's already started some training. You guys know Katrina. I've mentioned her several times in this presentation. She's still our clinical leadership assistant. She's cleaning up our disaster triage for the non-compliant. And she still is gonna send out the clinical scorecards. She still manages the complaint log. She also follows up trying to find a new MD for, if we can't care for the patient anymore. A new MD, but, you know, she's also one, if we're not able to staff or care for the patient anymore, she also finds another agency. She transitions the agencies for us. And she issues a 15-day notice for patients DC. And then Renee, you guys all know, she's the one that's transcribing the orders for us. Research and DC reminders. Also helps Katrina with the clinician scorecards, and she really helps with that wound block, thank goodness. And the CNA supervision. Here's Ashley's little bear. Bear is his nickname. So Little Barrett, that's his first name. He is so sweet. I hope to get to see him this weekend. It's Ashley's birthday this weekend. And here are the handouts received. So that shall include our 2024 clinical workshop.
You're dismissed. At 5:04, amazing timing.